know stuff.
Do what I say, don't say what I do. Do what I say, don't say what I do. Do what I say, don't say what I. Do what I say, don't say what I. Do what I say, don't say what I do. Do what I say, don't say what I do. Do what I say, don't say what I do. Do what I say, don't say what I do.
Good morning. Hello. I am Mark Severide, Hebrew Israelite pastor and multimedia artist. Today, obviously, I'm going to make some comments on a YouTuber by the name of Dark Matter 2525. He is a quote-unquote skeptic, atheist presence on YouTube, and I just want to present a little information to counter some of the points that come across, and I'm sure you've surmised that by now, seeing the sarcasm at the beginning of the intro. So in response to that, immediately, I would like to say that appealing to emotions and all of that obvious soapbox grandstanding really does not help your case. Most people today are not that slow with the advent of social media and the information age. As positive or negative as we see the experience, i.e. people being influenced by the wrong things, disinformation, or just the isolation factor where you think you know everything because you can just Google it. There are some positive aspects to it, which means that, there is a lot of information out there that is credible, going by primary sources, which is terribly important when trying to prove your points. So I wouldn't say that his depiction of the flood really makes any sense. It's very, very childish. Obviously, he even had to admit at the very end that cute little puppies and cute little kitties survived, right? I have two annoying little puppies of my own. I love them dearly, but golly gee whiz, they can bark for no reason at the drop of a dime. Okay. The point of his moral high ground flood video that I showcased at the beginning of this one is terribly disingenuous. Researching the scriptures, researching the book of Enoch, which is extra biblical, but also relevant because the Bible does speak of Enoch and not in a negative way. Enoch was quoted by the prophets. So the book of Enoch is legitimate, and I personally use it as reference. These texts explain to us in great detail why the flood had to manifest. And the main reason was because everything that the Most High had created was tainted. It was tainted by, for all intents and purposes, fallen angel DNA. Now that DNA had crossed over into animals, and they were tainted. Tainted to the point where, much like today, the physiology of people and animals are being changed because of all of the satanic presence within the industrial complexes, chemtrails, GMOs, fluoride in the water, you name it. They're doing everything they can to adjust our DNA according to their purpose. And the they that exist are what the Bible refers to as the Nephilim, which are the children of fallen angels. That's depicted in Genesis, and in greater detail the book of Enoch. One of the reasons why most quote-unquote theologists or Christian apologists or whatever denomination of churchianity you want to put out there says that is not influenced by the Most High. They don't want you to know. They don't want you to know what's actually going on and who's really running the show. So before the time of Noah's flood, we'll just call it that, there was terrible, terrible things going on. People were literally killing one another, raping, pillaging, eating one another, and it had to be reset. There was a pure bloodline that the Most High recognized, and that is what it is. For you to blatantly try to play on people's emotions with cute little kitty pictures and puppy pictures, the value of a life should not be determined on how cute a creature is. So that can be dispelled right off the bat to an intellectually honest person. I myself loathe snakes. I got a problem, okay? It's Indiana Jones level let's just say dissatisfaction for snakes. But I recognize their value in creation. They are important to the ecosystem, and just because I don't really like the way it looks does not mean that it's any more or less valuable a creation than, say, a puppy or a kitty. Okay? So that's just stop, dude. That's remedial. Okay? As far as the rest of the video, this person has put out so much propaganda that is not actually atheistic or skeptical. He's well versed in the information according to a certain narrative. And the narrative is actually anti-theism. There is a hatred for a creator here with this person. It's blatantly obvious. And I'm going to go ahead and just counter 5 points of, let's just say, contention against a lot of the information, quote-unquote information, that he's putting out there. So let's get started.
Many of us are willing to give our eternities to a concept of God that was presented to us by the ancient Israelites.
Alright, well, so far so good. He didn't say most, he said many. According to the Washington Times, 84% of people in the world believe in a intelligent designer. We'll go with that. We'll just say it that way. However, I will have to contend the fact that most of these narratives that the YouTuber presents is against the quote-unquote Judeo-Christian point of view. As such, only about, according to the last major independent study in 2011, about 2.18 billion people, which roughly make up about a third of the population of the world, are quote-unquote Christian or Judeo-Christian. So It's important to be fair. The reason I'm bringing it up is because, well, let's go forward and find out why.
Forget about eternity for a moment. Imagine a world in which our lives in the here and now are dictated by a government that acts exactly like this God. There is a vote first, of course. Technically, there is a choice, but somehow the election results in a nearly unanimous victory. That is the final election. You cannot have any other administrations before this one.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Exactly like God? Wow, wow. That right off the bat is already coming off as completely disingenuous. A motive is starting to arise based upon the narrative. If you want to compare, let's just say the United States government as a model for who Hebrew Israelites, as myself, call the Most High God, which is who essentially this YouTuber is talking about. You want to compare it as if it's exactly the same, let's say, ideology. That is absolutely inaccurate. We have documented information, historical information, that tells a very, very profound truth that this country, the United States of America, was founded by legit Luciferians, Freemasons. Now, if you don't believe me, you might want to pick up some literature, first and foremost being by the highest ranking Freemason that relatively ever lived, a gentleman by the known as Albert Pike. I don't really know if he was a gentleman or not. I'm just saying that to be polite. From his writings, Moral and Dogma, it pretty much signifies that he was no gentleman at all. An illuminist, a straightforward Satanist who laid the groundwork not just for a unified country in the way that the United States has become, but also paved blueprints for World Wars I, II, and III. The startling aspect of this is that each war so far has gone down to a T, just as was quote-unquote prescribed by the Mr. Albert Pike.
Contrary to popular understanding, the United States was not founded on the ideals of freedom and democracy. The United States was founded as an occult Freemason enterprise. The Freemasons needed a base for criminal activities. American Freemasonry was used in the 18th century to protect organized crime, including opium smuggling, piracy, and later illegal slave trading, and to deceive the public and rewrite history. One of the real causes of the American Civil War was that Freemasons, under Confederate General Albert Pike, tried to establish the world's greatest slave realm, including Cuba and Mexico, calling it the American Confederation, with its capital in Richmond, Virginia. And although the various lodges acted to bring this about, election of non-Freemason and Republican Abraham Lincoln derailed this ambition. Lincoln was voted into office in November 1860 to the great dismay of the Freemasons. Shortly after assuming the presidency in 1861, he was the target of an unsuccessful assassination attempt in Baltimore, Maryland. So Masonic Grand Master Albert Pike then chose another solution, the Civil War, which started on April 12, 1861, a conflict that would serve the agenda of transforming America from an agricultural society into an industrial society. And the rise of the industrial age would serve a twofold purpose that would both advance technology exponentially and create wars for limitless blood sacrifice. The conspiratorial nature of Freemasonry was explicitly defined by Albert Pike in his Masonic lexicon book, Morals and Dogma. Masonry, like all the religions, all the mysteries, Hermeticism, and alchemy, conceals its secrets from all except the adepts and sages, or the elect, and uses false explanations and misinterpretations of its symbols to mislead those who deserve only to be misled, to conceal the truth which it calls light from them, and to draw them away from it. Truth is not for those who are unworthy, are unable to receive it, or would pervert it. The truth must be kept secret, and the masses need a teaching proportioned to their imperfect reason. Giuseppe Mazzini of Italy, founder of the Mafia, was a 33rd-degree Freemason who replaced Adam Weishaupt as head of the Bavarian Illuminati in 1834. Mazzini appointed America's Albert Pike as sovereign pontiff of Universal Freemasonry and the coordinator of the Illuminati United States activities. Pike was a Tennessee Ku Klux Klan judicial officer. A known Satanist, Pike indulged in phallic worship and the occult. In a letter to Mazzini dated August 15, 1871, Albert Pike graphically outlined a blueprint for 3 planned world wars. World War I would weaken, topple, and destroy the powerful Tsarist government in Russia. World War II would pit Great Britain against Germany, destroy Nazism, and create the Zionist state of Israel. And World War III would be ignited by fueling aggression between the Zionist state of Israel and the Arab world, who would eventually destroy one another. But in fact, these great wars masked the age-old plan to finally raise humanity's capacity for warfare and ritual blood sacrifice to an industrial scale.
Pike's letter ironically also detailed the specifics of the first 2 wars with stunning accuracy, suggesting that he knew before time the details surrounding each of the wars. World War I, according to Pike, would be fought to overthrow the czars in Russia and change Russia into a communist state. The Second World War would be fought for 2 reasons: to establish the State of Israel and to expand communist control over Europe. The Third World War will be what allows the Novus Ordo Seclorum to rise out of the dust. According to Pike, Islam will be the central factor in the downfall of the West. Islam will be decimated in the process, allowing for the new religion of pure Luciferianism to spread on the earth. All Muslims will fall for this system. There isn't a single Muslim on earth who will not partake in the religion of the New World Order, according to Pike. Islam is merely a tool to destroy the Christian
This is
West.
the levels. These are the levels in Freemasonry, and we can fill them in. The actual levels vary according to the source. This one here is as it was revealed by Ayn Rand, who was the girlfriend of Philip Rothschild. She committed suicide. Humanism is the lowest level. Masons, no aprons. The YMCA, the whole scout movement out there, etc., forms part of Masonic organizations. Rotary, the Lions, the Oddfellows, well, you have them right next door. The Lions, of course, use the 2-headed lion, the Zionist, the 2-headed one, all those symbols. And these are all good organizations that appear to do very good things. Blue Masons, that's John's Masons. There you have the name John again. Get very nervous when you hear it. York Rite, Scottish Rite, Communism, B'nai B'rith, Jewish Masonry, Council of 500, Council of 33, Council of 500, also known as the Bilderbergers, if you like, the Council of 13. And at the highest level, we saw that the papacy is involved because the Jesuits control all of them, every single level. Here is the Pope in front of the Boy Scout movement, and this is the feeder organization into other organizations. And none of them know anything about it, so don't accuse them, but have a look at some of their symbolism and see if you find the Masonic symbolism there. You'll find it. Female Masons that were very prominent, of course, Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, founder of the Theosophical Society, Annie Besant, Alice A. Bailey, and Alice A. Bailey, her husband, was Foster. He was a 32-degree Freemason and part of co-masonry. They started a publishing company known as Lucifer Trust, which they later changed to Lucis Trust. This is Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. This one over here is Alice A. Bailey. And these are the ones who wrote down the secret of the secret doctrines. Of course, once they achieved the highest degrees, then they would have to be male. So Annie Besant is known as Brother Annie Besant, 33-degree Freemason. The same in the Egyptians. If a female pharaoh became pharaoh, then she was male. So Hatshepsut, for example, is figured with a beard, because you had to be an honorary male. You can't be the reincarnation of the sun god if you're a female. So co-masonry, Annie Besant and all these high masons, Alice A. Bailey, high priestess of the New Age movement, received messages from a Tibetan known as Dwal Kul. On her writings, you will find, of course, the Masonic symbols. And these are her writings. And, of course, Blavatsky is the one who wrote Isis Unveiled, Secret Doctrine, and all of these mystic Masonic books, which are virtually impossible to get hold of, although these days you can, if you search, find them. And there you have it, on Sovereign Grand Commander Henry Clausen. That it is. That's the symbol of Baphomet. That's Baphomet, the androgenic god. And you will be surprised where Baphomet features these days. I will be showing it to you in future lectures. And of course, it's also on the building over here, which is the headquarters of the Mother Supreme Council of the world, Washington, D.C., where the Constitution for the New World Order has already been written, right there.
For you to sit there and say that this government acts exactly the way the Most High would is completely inaccurate. It's a lie, straight out. I realize that you're going to try and present a metaphor, and that will be addressed as well. But right off the surface, your surface narrative, I call it BS because that's exactly what it is. Whether you know it or not, and I'm speaking of the individual who is producing these videos, that is on you, all right? Whether you're presenting these narratives as complete knowledge or not, or you're ignorant of certain things, because Albert Pike isn't the only example of us, of the United States being a Luciferian government. George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, literally the founders of the United States of America were all Freemasons, all Illuminists, and for lack of a better term, Satanists. Okay? That is just the way it is. That's a documented fact. It's what they believed. The United States was a relative experiment, as many people would not like to believe. But if you look into the facts and start with what I presented, and you look into it intellectually honestly, then you'll probably come up to astute affirmations yourself. Let's continue.
Henceforth, the government is well aware of all your private communications and activity. Federal video cameras are everywhere, even in bedrooms and bathrooms.
Okay, I'm no fan of the surveillance state, which is a Luciferian world order objective, as stated in Agenda 21 and other documents that are all Luciferian in nature, coming directly out of our U.S. government. But I have yet to walk into a public restroom and have a camera pointed at me. So that's an outright lie. Now granted, there are a lot of things that we do not know, right? There are cases in which managers of certain restaurants placed hidden cameras in ladies' restrooms and whatnot. But that is a far different idea than the narrative that's been presented here. This is a private, perverted weirdo, as opposed to the so-called godly, I'm watching you every step of the way state. Okay. Again, this is for a metaphor, but unfortunately it's going to be broken down for what it is.
Not a single moment of your life will go unseen, from conception to death. Simply seeing what you're up to is not enough. The government must know every facet of your mind, so all citizens have a chip implanted in their head at birth. This chip monitors whether or not you have any illegal thoughts. Due to all this surveillance and thought monitoring going on, at least you're safe from crime, right? Well, not so fast. Surveillance is only used to determine guilt, but neither interventions nor preventative measures are ever taken. You see, as a good person, you don't have much to worry about from the government, but you do have a lot to worry about from people who aren't so good, because they don't have a lot to worry about from the government either. For though cameras and police are everywhere, when you or your loved ones are mugged, raped, or murdered, the police do nothing to stop the perpetrator even while present, because that would interfere with the criminal's free will.
Okay, so which is it? I mean, the surveillance state, which does not allow, in an Orwellian fashion, you not to have thought crimes, okay? And it was clearly depicted that the man who was having thought crimes was taken to jail for said thought crimes. Then you control your narrative to where, but people go ahead and engage in criminal behavior, and the cops can't do anything about it until, you know, they do it. And, you know, then you still have to go to court to prove this, that, and the other. Which is it, bro? Which is it? Are you going to be put away for thought crimes, or are you going to be put away for actual crimes? Because from what you're presenting right now is a direct contradiction. Do you want to have one or the other, or do you want to have neither? What's really being presented here is that you want to have neither. You do not want to have an authority over you telling you what to do. To a certain degree, I almost agree with that. However, the difference is I recognize law. You cannot simply run around and do whatever it is that you want to do just because you want to do it and not expect repercussions from your societal standpoint. Because we, the people, have made laws, correct? Now, granted, I presented information that shows that these societal laws were derived from certain aspects of morality, but unfortunately, a lot of the laws that are out there are not there to prove our interests. So it suggests that there is an industrial complex that's regulating fines and laws out there, which are very, very much not what the Most High wanted for his children. What I'm talking about is very simple: Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments is the law that I follow, and I'm actually really okay with following those laws. The problem is that others want to invoke their own emotion, their own pride, and their own sense of value within it or against it. So that's what's going on here. You just don't like being told what to do, and that's fine. But for you to misrepresent a narrative, to blame a law that is holy and just, okay? Things like not lying, not stealing, and yes, not committing idolatry, right? Because we did have a creator that wants respect of the creation. That's how it intertwines one another. It's a coexistence with him. You don't want to accept that. Okay, then don't accept it. But don't bring it into play as if it's not relative to the necessity of our continued existence. I don't want to kill, I don't want to be killed, and I want to stay here as long as I can so that I can do as much as I can with this life that I was given. I personally believe that this time that I have corporeally is a speck of time compared to eternity, which is what you were discussing before. I give myself to that. I believe it. It's fine if you don't, but do not make a narrative based upon what you think is correct when it simply isn't correct, because you're already contradicting yourself. You cannot have one without the other. You can't cherry pick what is right and what is wrong It simply is black or white. 1 + 1 = 2. Period.
Criminals have to stand before a judge and answer for their crimes, sure, but all they have to do is apologize and sincerely ask for forgiveness, not of you, the victim, but of the judge.
The judge represents the victim.
And the criminal is then set free. Should you entertain a thought of spite toward the person who killed your loved one, then it is you who will stand before the judge. If you cannot muster adequate shame, then it is you who will be punished. The sick and the poor beg the government for help, but the government's most reliable aid is reserved for the wealthy. During award ceremonies, you can usually spot professional athletes, award-winning actors, and musicians thanking the government for its generous welfare. Meanwhile, children are dying of preventable diseases, starvation, dehydration, and natural disasters without any relief that could be easily supplied by the government's virtually inexhaustible coffers. Coffers which are reserved for the welfare of the privileged few. This might seem unfair at first, but just realize that the government works in mysterious ways. Trust that the government has a good reason for funding mansions and swimming pools for some, but not food and water for others.
Yeah, all of that based upon a Luciferian world order that is in control, secretly, of about 90% of our governments in the entire world. Now, the metaphor that he's trying to present here is beyond ridiculous when you begin to understand the actual state of the world. You cannot hide behind the narrative that, oh, this is all God's fault, when we have herbalistic doctors, holistic doctors that are literally being murdered because they are presenting cures for AIDS, cancer, diabetes, blindness, and nearly everything else.
What makes you want to do a documentary about Dr. Sebi?
I think the story is important. I think it's a powerful narrative. It is. You know what I mean? And I think imagine this. Anybody in this room, if I could say, hey, somebody cured AIDS, y'all be like, yeah, right. And then I could show you an example of him going to trial, proving in a court to a jury that he cured AIDS. Y'all be interested in that.
Absolutely.
And y'all would look into the way he did it, right? So I feel like more so than like championing his products or explaining his methodology, put some light on that case.
Imagine being able to cure cancer.
Here come the detectives. You are charged with practicing medicine without a license, selling products that are approved by the FDA, and claiming to cure AIDS and other diseases. I said, yes. Well, you are making a fraudulent claim. I asked the detective, how do you know that?
Because you were advertising in newspapers.
Of course, I advertised in the Village Voice, the Amsterdam News, and the New York Post.
And you were telling people through your advertising that you can cure
AIDS, sickle cell, lupus, herpes, blindness, diabetes, paralysis, and others.
Okay, so they come knocking on the door and...
So knocked on my door and took me to jail. But the funny thing about it, I was happy. I was very, very, extremely happy. When everybody in my office was crying, I was happy because my mama told me they were coming. And I knew that I had sufficient evidence to prove my position. Not only scientifically, empirically, historically, and whatever way they would like to desire. So, while I was in jail, I'm saying, I wonder what defense they would have against me. I would like to know. But I didn't blame the Attorney General, Mr. Robert Abrams, because why should he accept from me the statement that I cure AIDS and sickle cell and blindness when no one else has ever made those claims? The man had a right to arrest me, but he was making a mistake.
Now, family, I was just about to go to Dr. Sebi's website and purchase some products after the death of Nipsey Hussle, right? So I'm trying to purchase some products right now, and this is what happens. This actually finally came up. Before was actually, I will get a 502 bad gateway error, but when I'm trying to purchase anything, I get that. So the site is shut down. You know, I'm not a conspiratorial type dude, but you know, this is definitely suspect. You know, this is everybody. You know, if you don't know the connection of Dr. Sebi and Nipsey Hussle was working on a Dr. Sebi documentary. You know, this would actually talk about the history of Dr. Sebi. You know, his all of his plant-based remedies for healing people of diseases and illnesses and things of that nature, and also going into how he died a few years ago. And Nipsey Hussle was going to release the documentary. He was going to, you know, he was executive producer and all that stuff. He was going to do that. Yeah, this site is going haywire.
He beat the case, and he went to federal court the next day and beat that case on record, and nobody talked about it.
And I would advise my viewers who might be questioning your authenticity that you won that case. Now, so the charge was practicing medicine without a license and claiming that you had a remedy to cure AIDS, cancer, and diabetes. AIDS, cancer, and diabetes. So the question is, how did you win that case against what some people say are the toughest prosecutors in the land?
Well, it was 1987.
87, not 79, 87.
The 10th of February.
Okay.
My mother knew they were coming. When I told my mama that I had cured my 13 AIDS patient, she said, "They gonna get you. They gonna get you."
So let me stop you there. You said I cured my 13 AIDS patients.
Yeah.
So you had 13 patients.
Yeah.
Who had AIDS.
Yeah.
And then you say you cured them.
Sure.
Keep talking.
So my mother said, "They're gonna get you." I said, "But Mom, why are they gonna get me?" Because you must remember that you live in a society that supports a certain philosophy and a certain system. You being the color that you are, black, and then you're going against the grain, they're gonna get you.
They've found herbal cures for them. There are people that are being murdered because they are trying to get this information out there. And if you believe in the Bible, you believe that these things were created by the Most High, because He created everything. So for you to sit there and say, "Oh, you know, the God doesn't present, He doesn't help us, He lets the babies die," and he tried to appeal to emotion again, to force an obvious anti-theistic narrative, is ridiculous. I again do not know if you're just ignorant of what's actually going on in the world, or you know what's going on in the world. All signs show that you know exactly what's going on. All signs show that you probably even know who Margaret Singer is, who once said that the so-called African Americans, which the Bible calls the tribe of Judah, the original people of the world, should be pulled out of the world like weeds. Now, this woman co-founded Planned Parenthood. Now, if you think that Planned Parenthood is there for the benefit of society, you know, ask the millions and millions of children that are killed because of this Luciferian organization. If you really, really want to break things down and go the route of God allows this to happen, we can go back to the reality of free will. You may scoff at it and you may make fun of it and say, "Oh yeah, free will," but it is profoundly important. How are you going to learn anything? You would rather have a Rick and Morty situation where death has no consequence?
This seems kind of fancy.
Jerry, for all you know, this is the equivalent of an alien truck stop. You have no frame of reference. You're in a universe beyond your imagining. But yes, it is super fancy. I mean, my job here is to make Morty happy. I'm not gonna take you somewhere dangerous.
Rick Sanchez, I told you if I ever saw your face in here again, I would stick you like the pig you are.
Snoopy bloopers. I told you if you tried, there'd be 2 funerals.
Someone? Someone?
My friend, it has been too
It's great
long.
to see you again, buddy. Yeah, you're doing it.
Mr. Sanchez gets anything he wants.
The resort's covered in an immortality field. You can't die here. That's the gimmick.
Okay, but still, bad parenting.
Hey, rich a-holes are rich a-holes. They all pay top dollar to come here and enjoy a consequence-free vacation. No death, no disease, no dismemberment. Can't even have a heart attack.
Got it. The perfect place to take the most fragile being in the universe.
Even the show itself realized how irresponsible that is. How are you going to progress as a human being? How are you going to progress as society if you're not able to learn? You want to be an automaton. You want to be a robot. That's all you want. How did that work out for the angels, right? You claim that this is going on, that the Most High gave us free will, and before we were given free will, angels were created for purposes, specific purposes, meaning not a lot of free will going on there. How did that work out? You understand? Creation is going to do what creation does. Now you can sit there and blame the Creator for what creation does, right? But given free will or not given free will, it seems apparent that it's going to do what it's going to do anyway. And instead of moaning and bitching and complaining like a 2-year-old little sissy that it's not working out according to the way you see it and the way you want it, because, oh God, he's so unfair, he kills the kittens and the puppies and the babies. Stop BSing. I don't think for 1 second that you actually care about that. How can you when you're misrepresenting everything based upon little characters, false narratives of what is actually going on, not presenting any real truth in terms of what I'm trying to present, which is the reality of the world? You have satanic organizations in control of the government. The Most High has given us herbal remedies. He's given us everything that we could possibly need to succeed. Yet your stance is, we were set up for failure. We were set up for failure. We were so set up for failure. God hates us. We were set up for failure. Well, you could look at it that way, like a lily-livered, yellow-bellied punk. Or you could realize what far many people are realizing, thankfully so, that we were set up for success. Because it's not what happens to us, it's how we react to what happens to us that really counts.
It's all part of a classified plan, a greater plan. Above all, you're not allowed to talk bad about the government.
Oh, geez. Surface level argument, the First Amendment.
Not only is that considered unpatriotic, but it's also illegal, unforgivable.
All things are forgivable. The condition to which the forgiveness manifests is what you have a problem with.
And carries the most severe punishment of all. Isn't that odd? Your fellow citizens would also ostracize you, showing genuine contempt for you because you dared to be critical of your government. It's almost as if they fell in love with the chains that bind them.
It's almost as if they fell in love with the chains that bind them. John 8:32 tells me that if I look for the truth, I'll find the truth and it will set me free. I am not chained down. I am more free than I have ever been. Mentally, physically, spiritually. Oh wait, you don't believe in the spirit. Well, take the other things into account.
Fortunately, we live in the real world, where voters and elected officials take proper consideration before making decisions based on what they think God wants. So naturally, people wouldn't tolerate a government that did any of the things mentioned in this video, right? Right?
Okay, I've already kind of addressed the direct metaphor, but I'll expound a little bit. We cannot rely on information that becomes falsified by false intention. What do I mean by that? Well, I presented to you what is actually going on in terms of the biblical understanding as opposed to a controlled narrative of just inaccurate, inappropriate, disconnected narratives such as this gentleman's video. It's not making a hell of a sense, except maybe to him. Maybe, you know, he's so isolated in his hatred for his creator that he's blinded himself to a more open-minded idea of what's actually going on. I don't know. But I have no tolerance for misinformation, disinformation, and outright lying. It's ridiculous. If you want to present a narrative, wouldn't it be more ideal to present a narrative without bias? I know that sounds weird, but bear with me for a moment. When I am presented information, these days, I take myself out of the equation. I don't care about my pride. I don't care about my ego. I want to know the truth. So I look into it with intellectual honesty. Does 2 plus 2 equal 4? Yes. But this person says 2 plus 2 equals 5. Okay, well, let me look into that. Maybe there's something to that. But then you begin to realize that black is black and white is white, blue is blue and red is red. And then there's only so much more that you can move on towards. It is what it is, man. So this is a resounding example of anti-theism. Speaking as a former agnostic turned occultist, realizing my Hebrew Israelite heritage and accepting that for the truth it is in my life now, I can understand why a person would feel the way this gentleman does. But I never allowed it to consume my soul to the point where I didn't try to grow. I see no growth in any of this narrative. It is a direct, single-minded, linear narrative to promote the hatred of a God. Whatever motives that God has, the obviousness of the narrative is beyond disconcerting, because you're only presenting the hatred based upon notions, characterizations that are misrepresenting the source material beyond belief. I mean, I thought Christian pastors were getting it wrong by misquoting scripture or not giving you the whole scripture. You mentioned one thing about all you got to do is impress the judge, paraphrasing. Well, all you got to do is say you're sorry and then you got to let it go. No, that's not even lawfully accurate. If you have committed a crime and you are legally shown that you committed that crime, all the evidence shows that you murdered that person, you're going to jail. You're going to prison. You're punished. Okay? That's the way it is. So it's not just about believing in the Jesus character. Jesus is a false pagan name that was given to him by pagans. Okay? There were no J's back in the 1700s. So you can call him Jesus all you want, but that's not his name. The real name is in the Phoenician tongue, which was taken from the Paleo era, which is Yeshaya, and we can get that name, meaning Savior, from the Dead Sea Tablets, okay, fragment 9. But as it were, for the sake of your argument, you can't just call upon Jesus, 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 and then get saved. It doesn't work that way. You have to turn from your sin. You have to stop committing crimes so that when you receive the new kingdom, they won't have to worry about you committing crimes anymore because you're already not doing it. That's a part of salvation, you see. Faith without works is dead. Christ himself said, go and sin no more. Christ himself said, if you love me, you would keep my commandments. Now, my meaning his Father, because he represented the Godhead. He wasn't saying he was God. That's another pagan belief. Christ is not God on earth. He is the Son of the Most High, made in flesh to represent flesh. So please stop misrepresenting. Tell people the actual truth, and then maybe we can have discourse. Maybe we can have, a talking to each other, not at each other attitude. But obviously it's not within your ability to do that, at least from these videos, because you are presenting a narrative. Now, I could go on and tell people a little bit more about where a lot of your narratives are coming from, where a lot of your explanations and misrepresentations and disconnect of the scriptures is coming from. But I will just say this. People, you might want to research books like The Secret Doctrine by Helena Blavatsky, a Satanist slash theosophist. Obviously, you might want to pick up Morals and Dogma. Read it online. It's available. And Aleister Crowley's writings. You may even want to pick up Anton LaVey's The Satanic Bible. Depending on where you are spiritually, be very careful. These doctrines, this literature is riddled with deception. But a lot of the narratives and points of view coming from this gentleman's YouTube channel is nearly directly taken from this literature that I mentioned. You don't believe me? Pick it up and read it. Or at least skim it. Look through it. Prove me wrong. Okay? Whether he is deriving his ideologies from this or his tactics from this is completely on him. But like I said, the Lord allowed me to research all of this stuff. Okay? And I've come across the information, and I'm going to be honest with you, man. That's where a lot of this stuff is coming from, just from what I can tell. Now, I could be wrong. He may not be reading any of this. He may be completely ignorant to it. But I'm here to tell you that the works don't show that. This guy is not an atheist. He's an anti-theist. And in the Luciferian vein, in the Theosophist vein, in the New Age vein, it's apparent. But let's continue.
If any of you lovers disobey me, your wombs, crops, and livestock will be cursed. I shall confuse you and rebuke everything you attempt. You will receive plagues and drought. I'll send armies from afar to kill you. Birds will pick at your carcasses. You'll receive boils, tumors, and an incurable itch, madness, and blindness. You'll be oppressed and robbed daily. Someone else will ravage your wife. You'll build a house, but not live in it. Your possessions and family will be given to your enemies. Locusts and worms will eat all that you attempt to harvest. You'll be scattered and destroyed. You'll eat your own babies and placentas.
Okay, this scripture is not meant for everyone. Okay, so right off the bat, again, there is a lot of disingenuous projection here. This scripture is meant specifically, and it cites in the scripture that it's only for the Hebrew Israelites. Okay. Now, the reason this is important, fundamentally, is because the Hebrew Israelites were the first created. The tribe of Judah started with Adam and Eve. Okay. they're supposed to be the leader tribe. The Hebrew Israelites are supposed to be the tribes of the Most High in His creation, to lead all nations back to Him when the time comes. So the reason these curses were afflicted, and they were curses, they are curses, they're still affecting our people to this day, according to that scripture and prophecy, is because we did wrong to the Most High. And when I say we, I speak as a Hebrew Israelite as well. My tribe is Issachar, which people would today call a Mexican or Latino descent. So as a Hebrew Israelite, I understand that the scripture is specifically for me. It's not for the masses, it's not for everyone. It's not that, the Most High has this idea of, just mass murder. It's ridiculous to take it out of that context without explaining the whole thing, because if you go further in the scriptures, that particular chapter, in chapter 32, chapter 64, it goes on to explain that, yes, you are under a curse for the crimes that you committed against the Most High and each other, leading your nations to pagan worship, all sorts of vile things, and all the other nations, including the Gentiles, into the same way of life. As a holy and just God, you have to hold your children accountable for the actions that they commit. So we have to understand that that's what this scripture is talking about. You present it as if, oh, well, it's for, just everyday people. No. It's a specific people that it talks about. It goes on to say that we're even going to be given amnesia. We're not even going to know who we are as Hebrew Israelites. The identity will be taken away from us, which is quite literally what happened when the Zionist Jews took over shortly after World War II in Israel. Those are who the Bible calls the false Jews, okay? The synagogue of Satan, the imposter Jews, okay? They're not of Shem. The Hebrew Israelites are of Shem. Okay. So it then tells us that He has not forsaken us, He has not forgotten us, and that we will wake up from this amnesia and begin to spread this truth to all the nations, right? If you have a personal problem with not being able to accept judgment from people or the Most High, then again, that's on you. You don't seem to fathom the rationale of doing something wrong and having to pay for it if you do something wrong. It doesn't seem like you understand simple logic that you need to teach what's right so that you don't do what's wrong. It doesn't make any sense for you to project a narrative that is non-consistent with these intellectually honest ideas. If you have a problem with someone judging you, okay, that's fine. You can have that problem. I personally don't, as long as that being is the Most High power that ever existed and is holy and just. I understand that He can't go against His holy and just nature just because of this situation or that situation. If He picked things according to the way your rationale dictates, He wouldn't be holy and just. Okay? What is good, what is bad, period. But make no mistake, the scriptures that you're using, you are deliberately, at least from what I understand, or what I'm ascertaining, out of context. Now, I also ascertain from your other narratives that you're doing this on purpose. You're not ignorant of what you're doing, because you know who the Hebrew Israelites are. You know who Gentiles are. All right? So I'm going to call you out on that, and that's that.
Hey, God, look at that! Onan just had sex with his brother's widow, pulled out, and then came on the ground.
Oh no, he did not just waste a perfectly good money shot. Kill that motherfucker.
Okay, let me see if I understand you correctly. You literally have a problem with preserving DNA, which there is a multi-billion-dollar industry right now to preserve eggs and sperm, because it's precious to people to have their DNA code, their seed, their egg, whatever it is, male, female, okay, so that they can pass down a legacy. You have a problem with that. Like, I don't even understand how a person can rationale what you're trying to project. Your anti-theist narrative is beyond ridiculous. We can do it, but the being that created the DNA code can't dictate whether it should be preserved or not. Dude, that's just wrong. It's absolutely wrong. Now, granted, free will is in play, and you can do whatever it is that you want, but again, that is going to be something to be held accountable for in the future. If you want to just expel your seed all over the place, you have that prerogative. That's on you. You can do that. It may be an illegal act according to the Most High. There are consequences to everything that we do that is non-conducive to the human condition. Period. I'm sorry you don't like it. I'm sorry you got a problem with people telling you what to do. But sometimes we need to accept reality and logic over pride and emotion.
I'm sick and tired of acting. Oh, that does it. Flood the whole fucking world. I want everyone dead.
Whoa, back up, God. Just think about this for a minute. I mean, you want to kill all the people? I mean, just send down a plague or something. That'll wipe them out.
No, I want every living thing dead. Except Noah and his family. Noah's the only one who knows where to stick his... Tell Noah to build a fucking boat and put a load of animals on it for the next generation. I'm killing everything else.
God, think about it. Well, why would you want to kill grass and flowers and trees? I mean, what do they have to do with asking?
Oh, what does trees have to do with asking? Oh. Yeah, that's cute. Real cute. So, okay, say you're walking through the meadow and you get kind of tired, so you want to take a break. And you see a nice tree over there, and you lean on it to take a rest. And what's that smell? I don't know what that smell is. It's awful. What is that? Oh, that's right. It's ass. 'Cause some ass came along and touched this fucking tree. So now the tree smells like ass, and now I smell like ass. You want that, Jeffrey? Do you want me to smell like ass?
No.
Wow, this is the most remedial argument that I've ever heard. I'm going to address the grass and plants thing first, okay? He didn't destroy it because it exists today. So, as far as all the other hoo-ha that you're projecting here, it's quite simple. During the time of Noah, the earth was overwhelmed by the children of fallen angels, known as Nephilim. You can read all about it in Genesis 6. You can read all about it further in detail in the extra biblical texts known as the Book of Enoch. Skip the Book of Enoch 2, that's Enochian magic. That is not accurate. But the first Book of Enoch, go for it. These Nephilim seed line had infected the entire planet. And when I say the entire planet, it's very similar to what's going on now. You have DNA manipulation. You have poison in the skies, in the water, in the food. They immunize children, giving them all sorts of diseases that are time sensitive, that are on a clock. Okay, and they're controlling everything through the industrial complexes, whether it be prison industrial complex, medical industrial complex, military industrial complex. These are definitive things that are happening that cannot be argued away. It's going on, and it's all satanic in nature. Okay, the Most High didn't have anything to do with this. Now you have a problem with the fact that, okay, well, why does he allow this to happen? If you ask that question, then you're not fundamentally understanding any amount of intellectual honesty that may or may not want to come out of you. What I'm trying to get at, okay, is that if you question the reality as it currently is, in the way that you're questioning, you have every right to do that. But this would be my answer. The Most High allows these things to happen because we have to learn. We are, unfortunately, creatures of habit. We have proven this all the way from Genesis and in prophecy all the way to Revelation. We have proven this. The Bible tells us that the works that we do are like dirty wash rags, that we think evil all the time, right? And you have a problem with that as well, as if you maybe never had an evil thought, as if you maybe never committed a crime, as if you maybe never sinned. Okay? When you're dealing with sin, you cannot simply say, why does the Most High allow these things to happen while you're the one doing the things that happen? Okay? Now, I get your point about rape. You can't unrape someone. But I also can counter that by saying there are many, many things that happen to people that are tragic. And the statistics show that 9 times out of 10, if an individual has been assaulted in one way or another, and they were given the choice to let go of their life and not live anymore or continue to go forward, those people would continue to go forward. The point that I'm trying to get at is that is a person better for living in a perfect matrix where nothing bad happens?
Did you know that the first Matrix was designed to be a perfect human world where none suffered, where everyone would be happy? And it was a disaster. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world, but I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. So the perfect world was a dream that your primitive cerebrum kept trying to wake up from. Which is why the Matrix was redesigned to this, the peak of your civilization.
Or where things run a natural course according to our evil nature, and we can learn from it and do what's right according to what we were imprinted to do. Okay? Because we have a conscience. We know good and evil, and we can choose to do either. All right? That is the true question. That's the reality that you're being dealt with that you simply don't like. And instead of saying, why, does the Most High allow these things? What we really should be saying is, well, I lied. Lies can lead to someone's murder. All right? You can lie to your wife, hey, I didn't commit adultery to you. Here's the explanation. One big old story, one lie. Later on, she finds out that you lied to her, and she decides to murder you and the person that you cheated on her with. You see, that's why all sin is equal, because it all can lead to the same place. Now, you may want to turn it around and say, well, why is death allowed to begin with? It's not. You just don't have the mental capacity to understand that there's something beyond your corporeal existence. That's not my problem. It's yours. If you cannot rectify that and you want to live in this fleshly state, that's on you. No one can do anything for you with that. You have to take responsibility for what it is that you condone and what you don't condone. If you say that the Most High allows this and that to happen, yeah. But would you rather not be allowed to lie or be allowed to lie? That is the real question. How are you going to learn anything? How is society able to progress in knowledge, in scholarship, in expertise, without breaking a few eggs within the confines of our current corporeal existence? I don't get you, dude. I don't get how you figure that it is okay to blame everything on the Most High when Oppenheimer and Einstein were the ones that created the atom bomb. When human beings are the ones doing what they do to one another. I don't understand that. It is cowardly to hide behind that mask of atheistic ideas, because as soon as somebody calls you out and says, well, why do you hate God and whatnot, and this may be a little bit of a straw man, but it's an exterior point that I'd like to bring across. Why is it that you hate God so much? And then you're going to hide behind it like so many other anti-theists do and say, well, how can I hate God if I don't believe in him? Dude, everything, all of your videos, and I haven't seen all of them, thank goodness, because they're all really remedial and foolish and satanic. But how is it that you can say that you're not believing in the Most High, and then projecting all of this hateful idea, misrepresentation of what is actually going on, not just in the scriptures, okay, but in reality, in common sense thought and intellectual honesty? I don't get it. I call you on it. You're beyond incorrect, and you're straight out lying. And to be honest with you, in my humble opinion, you're leading people into hell, which I think is what your objective is. But I'm grateful that the Most High will allow an audience to see this and realize what the truth actually is. Now, obviously, I cannot call you on every single video that you've made, and there's some great arguments that you have out there, and I can even understand it to the degree where I was an atheist point of view, or at least agnostic point of view back in the day. I wondered too, why does God allow these things to happen? Well, why did he kill the babies? The axe contention is, why did the Most High send those Israelites to go kill all those people and all those children? Well, because first of all, those were Nephilim seed line. They were committing various acts of immorality, sexual immorality, I should say. They were spreading diseases. The children that they had diseases that could not be fixed. Those children needed to be put out of their misery. That's why they were told, the Israelites were told to kill all of them. Okay, and you can look at it as any way you want to see it, but I mean, that's just the way it is. Children do go to heaven if they're innocent. That's why when you're baptized, you are only baptized, according to Hebrew law, at a certain age, because you're responsible at that age. But before that, you're not responsible. And you talk and talk and talk about, well, that child never had a chance to live and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. But we're talking again about the corporeal, okay? Fleshly existence. And I'm talking about eternal existence, okay? You can argue that point as well. Well, I don't believe in eternal existence. Okay, dude, that's on you. It's fine, okay? But I believe that you do, again, in my humble opinion, and I believe that you're trying to get others not to believe it the best you can with, honestly, some of the most inept rationales that I've ever come across. And I come across a lot of anti-theist foolishness, but yours is easy to call. I don't mean this as an insult. This is for the audience, that you need to understand that even though I'm not breaking every single thing down that this dude has ever done, I'm trying to show you people how easy it is to break down something that people like him are presenting. Because if you just use your own logic, simple logic, you can easily disseminate what is going on here. It's anti-theism to the core. And it's not a fair representation of what's actually going on in reality.
Next.
Okay, this is John and Jenny Smith. Jenny was shot and killed by Steve Jones when he mugged her. John survived the shooting, but later died of natural causes. Steve also eventually died of natural causes. John believed you did magic tricks. Miracles, back on Earth 2,000 years ago, and therefore accepted your ultimatum. Steve also believed at the time of his death. Jenny, however, did not believe.
Oh, well, this is easy then. Jenny, bye-bye. John, Steve, have fun in heaven together.
You think John will be happy spending an eternity with the guy who murdered his wife?
Of course he will. Sin cannot occur in heaven, and hate is sin. Every bit as serious as murder, Jeffrey.
Then he isn't really himself in heaven. He's just some mindless drone, forced to be happy.
Do you really think it's fair that God would send me to hell just because I don't believe he exists? Whoa, 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 hold on there. God doesn't send anyone to hell, buddy. You send yourself to hell by choosing to disobey God. You have the free will to choose, and you're choosing hell, not God.
I am more than okay with having free will, okay? I'm not going to sit here and cherry pick what I think is right and what I think is wrong. We all do what we do. But I'm grateful that the one who created me didn't create a robot. I'm grateful that the one that created me not only did not create a robot, but actually laid provision and law to know what to do. But ultimately, it's still my decision. I don't know what could be more holy than that. I don't.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you've all heard about how Benny Yahweh allegedly murdered Mr. Athens, but was that the actual state of affairs? Fortunately, security cameras recorded the entire incident, so there can be no doubt that the death of Mr. Athens was, in fact, the result of suicide.
Your goddamn wallet right now. What? No, get away from me. Look, either you give me all your damn money right now, or I'm gonna blow your frickin' head off. I'm not gonna give you a single dime, pal.
And there you have it, folks. You can't deny it. Mr. Yahweh gave Mr. Athens a clear choice. Mr. Athens had the free will to either obey the defendant and live, or disobey and die. He chose to disobey, so the defendant, in fact, did not murder him. Mr. Athens chose to die.
In the case of first-degree murder, we, the jury, find the defendant, Benny Yahweh, not guilty.
Oh, thank God! Thank God! Now give me all your frickin' money, or you're dead!
Oh my God! Here, take it!
Bailiff! He's robbing that woman!
Not so fast, bailiff. There was no robbery. She chose to give him that money. Hey, there's a robber pointing a gun at your head right now, and he wants you to give him all your money or he's gonna shoot you in the face! I don't see any robber. Trust me, he's there! Hurry! Good job, buddy.
Okay, well, we've already talked about this, but for reiteration's sake, you are falling upon the false premise of the grace doctrine, and that doctrine is completely inaccurate. You are not saved by grace alone. You have got to actually follow the commandments according to what the scriptures are telling us to be saved. There are other requirements. In fact, for the Hebrew Israelites, we have 613 law, statutes, and commandments to keep. Now, the grace doctrine does hold you over until you learn the law. But after you learn the law, you're responsible for them. So make no mistake, if I just claim upon the name of the Jesus character, which again is the wrong name, I can't just go into what you're calling heaven. By the way, we don't go up into sky with the clouds and the fairies and the pixie dust and all the other fantasy island BS that they're selling us. New Jerusalem, the new kingdom, will be brought down to us after the day of judgment, and the Hebrew Israelites and the Gentiles that would follow us would receive their new kingdoms, each to their own. So you're absolutely wrong in terms of what you're presenting here, and just, I guess, educate yourself if you haven't already, because again, I really feel as if you know, and you're just trying to lead people into hell. Now, I understand the Ben Yahweh character or whatever represents the Most High, which, by the way, you keep calling him Yahweh. That's actually taken out of the Tetragrammaton, which is a Jewish secret society book, and it systematically talks about Jewish mysticism, Jewish arts, all the things that Satan pushes upon the Jewish people, which are the false converts. And in that book, it details that Yahweh is actually Satan. Okay, Jehovah, Yahweh, all that stuff, that's Satan. That's not the Most High. The Most High's name is actually taken out of Exodus, when Moses said, "Hey, what's your name? Can you tell us?" And he tells him in English, "I am that I am." But when you translate that from the Phoenician tongue, the original Hebrew language, it is Ahaya Shurahaya, meaning I am that I am. So his name is Ahaya. So first of all, that's a simple little critique. The second one, obviously, is a surface level argument, and then I'll address the metaphor that you're explaining, or you're trying to project. You're talking about the free will of the individual who is being attacked. Okay, that person exercised his free will to deny the killer the money. So the killer exercised his free will to kill the person. That's not suicide. There's no such thing as murder by cop, suicide by cop, rather. That is a fallacy. That is a I guess forced subjectivity. The reality is that if you account for the free will of the victim, then you have to account for the free will of the victimizer. I know, you're trying to slide in your cute little anti-theistic point of view, but for the audience, it's quite apparent that you're just trying to manipulate evil thoughts into people's minds and hearts to get them to reject the Most High because you have a problem with him. So, no, there's no such thing as suicide by refusal to be victimized in any way, shape, or form. It is the victimizer's free will that needs to be respected. So going into the actual metaphor, which I believe what you're trying to dictate, is that the Ben Yahweh victimizer character represents the Most High, which means you know, we're just supposed to take this book's word for it, blah blah blah. You know, you're only supposed to do what he tells you to do without question, because it's an ultimatum. You know, you have two choices. You have heaven or hell, right? Heaven on earth or hell. And you know, it sucks that you only had those two choices. Well, I'll be honest with you, bro. I would rather have two choices than no choices. Okay, I didn't create the universe, right? And you're lamenting on the fact that the Most High has free will of his own, but you have a problem with it because it goes against what you want to see manifest in your world, which is, I guess, this icy cream fantasy land where everything just goes your way. That's cute. That's adorable. You probably enjoy the Rainbow Bright series. You probably enjoy My Little Pony. I don't know. A lot of atheists I hear like that show. Anyway, so the Most High has free will, obviously, on a much higher level. I'm okay with exercising my free will according to his, because he created everything. I'm okay with that. I don't know how to create a universe. I don't know how to create the, you know, existence. So I'm going to lower my ego and lower my pride to that standard. I'm okay with that. If you're not, okay. So, in closing, the argument should simply be this: if you are an honest atheist, you believe in a creator, I don't believe in a creator, that should be the end of the story. Perhaps we could dialogue about the new Avengers movie. Perhaps we could dialogue about next week's Game of Thrones show. I don't know, I've never seen it. But ultimately speaking, rational individuals should be able to meet at that standpoint, meet at that line and say, okay, I believe this, you believe that, and that's okay. But you don't. You hate the Most High. You hate your Creator. It's beyond apparent. You are driving your anti-theistic, really Luciferian, satanic, okay, story for the masses to, again, what I believe, just to lead people into hell. Because you hate God. You hate your Creator. You hate the Most High. For whatever reason this developed within you, is on you, obviously. There's nothing that anybody can do or say about that. You're making your own choices due to free will. So obviously I respect all of that. This is just so that there is a dialogue in proper connotation and context of what the scriptures are actually saying. For, let's say, Christians who are, you know, weak in the spirit and waver and think, oh my gosh, this dude, he's making so much sense. No, he's not. The problem is you don't actually know the scriptures, Christian. You don't actually know what the Bible is saying, because you're comparing it to what Western churchianity is saying it's saying. And when you go to these seminaries or theology schools, because I have, and you realize that what they're teaching is literally about at least 70% non-concurrent to what the source material is saying, there's a problem there. That's why you're failing. Because you believe that your religion is correct when it's simply a religion. And it's also a religion based fundamentally from pagan, satanic principles. Okay? So, do yourself a solid. If your pastor says it's okay to celebrate Easter this year, or it's okay to celebrate Christmas, or it's okay to celebrate any of the other pagan rituals that the Bible systematically tells you do not practice the ways of the heathen. There's plenty of celebrations that we're supposed to practice as Hebrew Israelites and the Gentiles that follow us. Okay? And none of them have to do with Nimrod, Osiris, Ra, or any of the other false pagan deities that you're forced to worship during these times, and you pretend that it's, oh, well, that's not why I do it. Well, it doesn't matter. If Christ wasn't born on December 25th, why do you celebrate it during that time? Fiscally, it's important for the corporations of the world, which are 90% Luciferian, to make money off of you. And there's a lot of other nefarious, satanic meanings behind it that you're probably ignorant of. And I've done videos on that, so you can take a look at those on your own time. But right now, I want to stick to my narrative. The gentleman, Dark Matter 2525, I respect your artistic skills, your animation, your voice-over content, but I am calling you out on the fact that you are pushing a satanic narrative, not an atheist narrative. As an atheist, I would actually be upset. As an intellectually honest atheist, agnostic, I would be completely upset with you. I'd be like, dude, if you don't, you're not, yes, it's okay to point out questions, intellectually honest questions about what may be a contradiction in the scriptures, which, by the way, I haven't found any. I literally have not found any contradictions in the scriptures. As an agnostic, I've never found any, okay? Again, that's a debate for another time, whatever, it doesn't matter. The point that I'm trying to make right now is that as an intellectually honest agnostic, I would rather you come up with just the questions than forcing a narrative akin to the question as if you already knew the answer, when it's quite apparent that you don't. You've contradicted yourself time and time again. You've created holistic fantasies about things that are inaccurate, not just in the Bible, but in reality, man. Okay? And those were pointed out as well. You have Nipsey Hussle, who was murdered for trying to do a documentary on the holistic doctor, Dr. Sebi, for promoting what he believed it was from the Bible was herbal remedies to cure nearly everything. You have doctors overseas that are fighting Red Cross so that they can use multiple mineral supplement, which is another concoction that's natural that can also cure diseases like cancer and diabetes and all these other diseases. These things were left behind by the Most High. But you want to complain and pretend like, oh, well, it doesn't exist because God hates us. No, bro. You're absolutely wrong. That's already been proven. You have a satanic cabal of people that worship Satan that are against mankind. Alright? And they're doing their best to suppress this information and to keep it from us so that we are dependent on their medical industrial complex that perpetuates the problems. It's why now women need to have multiple mammograms a year rather than one. Now they're required to have, what, like 2 or 3 now? Okay, I don't know if anybody understands, but radiation causes cancer. It's a carcinogen. Okay? So, please stop being dishonest. If you're going to go out there and do your cutesy little cartoonies, go for it, man. But in my opinion, you're not being intellectually honest, and that's where you fail. Look, bro, I have lost myself. I've lost a lot. I've lost children, 2 children in fact. I've lost recent family members, all as a condition of the current world that we live in. But all the while, even in my most darkest days, I would never blame the Creator. I would never see the point of that, because to me the point is free will. It doesn't make sense to me to curse a Creator for giving me something that in my soul, in my heart, I desire, I need. The point is free will. It cannot be pushed to this nebulous idea that we would like to think that our reality can be something subjective in that context. Free will is there for mankind to learn from our mistakes. We can choose to learn from them. We can choose not to learn from them and repeat our mistakes, which is a lot of the problem. Even after we receive the kingdom for a millennium, the Bible tells us that Satan will be released again to tempt the nations, to wean out that last bit of evil within mankind. So we do what we do. We are creatures of habit, and the Most High is holy and just in judging us according to that fashion, according to our free will. For a person to want it all their way is sad. And so it's okay to obviously rebuttal to the best of your ability. My intent here was only to show the confused, the proper point of view in terms of the information that was presented. I don't really care about anything else, so you guys do what you have to do. I pray the best for you all. I pray for everyone out there that the Most High does lead everyone to the truth. Kwanya Shabala. All glory to the Most High, Ahaya Shirahaya, Bahashim Yeshaya, Rawawakadash. That's the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. We have some announcements coming up soon. I appreciate your time. You made it all the way through. Comment, like, and subscribe, or dislike. I take it all. Bless you guys.
25 years ago, I was a committed atheist. But as I tried to reconcile that worldview with my experience and rationality, I came to see that atheism could not possibly be true, and in fact is a question-begging fallacy. If reason is to have any force at all, it cannot be a set of conventions or culturally agreed upon rules of thought, because they would simply be arbitrary and therefore could not be imperative. There could be no laws of logic. And if reason was simply a Platonic form, a piece of furniture of the universe, then it could not impose its rules onto thinking beings. Only a person exercising their will, a powerful person, could do such a thing. For reason to be intelligible, it must find its source in a transcendent, personal, perfectly ordered, non-contingent being who has revealed himself to us. If reason cannot be accounted for by a source outside of itself, then you end up trying to ground reason by using reason, and that is a logical fallacy begging the question. In addition, notions such as right, wrong, good, bad, etc. have no real meaning or oughtness if they are conventions or societal norms. They too must find their source in a transcendent, personal, non-contingent, omnibenevolent being. And again, the same is true regarding universals. Without a God in which all ideas are grounded, All we can speak of are particulars, individual things that bear no relation to one another despite the appearance to the contrary. And with only particulars there can be no language or communication whatsoever, since language is predicated on the existence of universals, on categories. One of the most common claims is the examination of how the world is, and that it shows that there is no God. To do this, however, is to use inductive reasoning. Induction looks at the particulars and extrapolates that this is how the world is without exception. The problem with using induction is that in an atheistic worldview it is fallacious. Just because something is true in a given instance is not proof it is that way in every instance. For an atheist to make a claim of how the universe is would require exhaustive knowledge of the universe in all its states of development, and no one can claim such a thing and be taken seriously. For induction to work requires that nature is uniform and that there are patterns of causation, but that uniformity must be accounted for in some way. And again, that way can only be in a cause outside of the universe that is acting in it by establishing the laws that govern these patterns and provide uniformity. Finally, there is the problem of the atheistic mind. If there is no soul, then the mind is simply a property of the brain. No brain, no mind. If this is true, then we're just physical entities, flesh machines. And if this is true, then we are entirely determined by chemical and biological processes, meaning there is no such thing as free will, and therefore no one can be truly held responsible for anything they do. After all, we would just be doing what we're programmed to do, such as believing in God or being an atheist. That would mean there would be nothing wrong with rape, murder, theft, lying, etc. And of course there could be no such thing as wrong in the first place. In the end, every tool an atheist uses can only be accounted for by the God of the Bible, a transcendent, non-contingent, personal being who imposes his image on us so that we can use our minds to make free moral choices, think rationally, employ induction, and use language. As a Christian, I challenge all atheists to stop borrowing all their tools from the God of the Bible and make your case without using logic, universals, induction, morality, or your minds. When you can do that, I'll take your claim seriously. Until then, every protest you make only proves what you're trying to deny. I'm Doug Powell.
Narrative, 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 narrative.